Hi, my name's Wendy from Sunflower Publishing, and I'm absolutely delighted to have Nicky Pellegrino as my guest today. It's really early for me in the morning, but she's in New Zealand, so I think she's nearly ready for bed. So we probably won't keep her too long. But goodness me, a lady with a really, really illustrious career in writing. She was born in Liverpool. She's a British lass. And she started writing fiction, really, I guess, from the memories of the summers that she had in Italy, because her father was Italian. We'll hear more about that love story as well, hopefully. Um, she says that the passions, the feuds, she wanted to kind of recreate those in her books, but she's going to tell us more about that. Now she works as a writer, a very prolific writer. I think we have to date 15 novels. She'll correct me if I'm wrong, translated into 12 languages. There's been more or less one every year since she started writing. And she now works also as a journalist. I don't know how she finds the time. She works as a journalist in Auckland, New Zealand. So, welcome, Nikki. It's an absolute delight. It really is.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
So, can we start with take me back to the girl brought up in Liverpool with an English mum but an Italian dad. How did how did the Italian side and the Liverpudlian side come together?
So, my mother, Sylvia, she was quite an adventurous young woman and she hitchhiked to Italy with her girlfriends and had a sort of adventurous holiday and met my father there, fell in love. And over a period of time, they would kind of had a sort of very passionate, they still have a very passionate relationship actually, where
Oh.
they're either sort of holding hands on the sofa or shouting at each other. There's no in between.
How very
So
Italian.
eventually, in between all the arguments, they managed to get married, and she got pregnant with me pretty quickly, and they were in Italy. And at 8 months pregnant, she just said to my dad, who's called Eduardo, I'm not staying here. I want to have my baby back in Liverpool with my
Right,
mum.
right.
So back they went, and he got a job in a factory, and my mum had two more kids, and so that's where we were raised. We're actually raised in Wallasey, which is on
Right.
the
Yeah.
just across the River Mersey from Liverpool.
So,
But we used to go back to Italy whenever we could. So we'd get the train a couple of times. We drove. We'd stay with family. It wasn't the glamorous Italy that of people's postcards. It was sleeping on mattresses on the floors in family members' houses, and most of my dad's family lived just outside of Naples in
yeah.
an area called Giuliano in Campania, which is a pretty rough kind of suburb, I guess, of Naples. It's not glamorous at all. So that was a big part of my childhood, that being in Italy, being with my Italian cousins and my aunties, and it was a very different life.
Life.
One I had in Liverpool. So different.
When you were a girl at school, Wallasey, Liverpool area, what were your aspirations? Take me back to that schoolgirl time, adolescence time. You've got the
Oh.
two lives going on that couldn't be more different. Where did you want to be then? What?
Well, actually, the north of England in the 1970s wasn't a great place to be different. So, for a start, I had a ridiculous name. My full name is Domenica Pellegrino.
Okay,
Um, I had flaming red hair and I'm 6'1". So,
right.
I'm this kind of half Italian giantess. So, I got teased a lot and bullied a bit. And it wasn't always the greatest time. And I also was quite rubbish at a lot of things. The only thing I was any good at all was writing. And I had a couple of, I think, if you look back at your childhood, often there were a couple of key teachers who
Yeah,
encouraged you in something.
yes.
I had
Lovely.
couple of amazing English teachers, Mr. Davis and Miss Ellis, who encouraged my terrible free verse poetry and, made me feel like I could write. So I dreamed of being a writer, but I
Right.
didn't know anyone who wrote fiction for a living.
No. Well, no.
So,
I
yeah.
don't think anybody did then, really, did they? You just didn't really mix in those circles. So the writing started quite early on then in your life. That
Yeah,
was always
and
going
I
to be that direction. That's really interesting.
And I loved to read. I
Yeah.
was this shy, gingery, tall child. I didn't want to go to parties and I wanted to stay home and read books for my friends. So I loved like writing and I loved reading. And because I couldn't see a way that I could be a novelist, it seemed like an impossible dream. That's why I decided to become a journalist because it seemed to be a way that I could make my living writing. And in fact, it was usefully quite a good
Well,
way to make.
yes. I mean, we'll come on to that in a moment. Just going back then, just before we finish, we move on from Liverpool. What books were you reading? Which were the most inspirational books that you read as a child?
So the funny thing is, when I first went to school, I must have been to quite a bad school and they never taught me to read properly. And my mother was told that I was a remedial reader. And then, as
Right.
luck would have it, they changed the school boundaries and I got sent to another school and got another teacher. And I don't know what she did, but she taught me to read. And I read so fast. I just read a million, anything I could get my hands on. I read, my mother's Mills and Boons. I read her Georgette Hayes. I read do you remember the Map and Lucia books? She had those. I read those. Oh, they were
I
huge.
was, yeah, I mean, for me, it was like to cider with Rosie in those
Yeah,
days.
I read those.
The
I read
Little Princess. And
all the kids' books like, Secret Seven, Famous
yeah,
Five,
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
Enid Blyton.
I know.
And read and read. I went to the library every week and came home with a sack of books and charged through them. And often probably books that were too old for me.
Well,
I think To Kill a Mockingbird, that would be one
oh,
of the, yeah.
wow. I
So
think that, when you do look back and the books that you read, I mean, I remember my mum and dad saying, stop reading Enid Blyton, she's not a very good writer. But I mean, I just, the secret, the wishing chair, the magic faraway tree. I mean, those were the books that I devoured. It was only, as a teenager, then moving on to my Jane Austen and my Dickens and and that sort of thing. It's weird, isn't it?
but she was an amazing storyteller, Enid
I
Blyton.
know,
I
I
think we
know.
all remember the Magic Forest. I've reread it actually. It's great. I reread it as an adult. And
I'm still
Swallows
waiting
Down.
for the film that they're doing the film of it, so that'll be marvelous, won't
But
it?
yeah, I moved on to sort of Jane Austen and the Brontes and all
Yeah,
those
yeah,
books.
yeah,
Yes. So it was just my real passion. And whenever people say to me, I want to write, what's your advice? I would say read. You learn so
absolutely.
much.
Totally agree. So after school then, did you go straight into journalism? What happened after school?
Oh, I came up with this brilliant idea that I was going to study law because it seemed like a great way to earn a living, but I hated it. I spent a year hiding from my law tutor, and switched and did an English degree. And at that point, and once I'd finished that, ill-equipped for anything, I decided to become a journalist. But rather than studying journalism, which would have been sensible, I just kind of moved to London with my best friend and
Right.
inveigled my way into journalism by dint of, I don't know, luck, I think, really. Just
Did
managed
your
to come.
parents have much influence on your career? Were they sort of making suggestions? How much influence did they have on you?
Well, my parents had quite, I guess, quite humble expectations because my
Asian.
dad was a factory worker, my mum just did clerical work. And so they sort of said, why don't you become a secretary? And whereas I was all like, what are you talking about? I want to have a secretary. I was full of myself. Um, and, and so I think that they were just worried because also the 70s in the UK when my dad was working in factories were a really bad time and he was always getting laid off and having periods of unemployment before he got another job. So my parents just wanted me to get a secure job.
Yeah.
Well, as we now know, there's probably no such thing as a secure job.
No, no, there isn't. No jobs
So,
for life now.
yeah.
And how did you feel about the journalism? Because I suppose if you've got aspirations to write, journalism is a really nice way to, to sort of open up that creative writing skill and expand it, isn't it, really, I guess?
Yeah, you're telling other people's
People.
stories, not your
Yeah.
own story. But
Yeah.
it's the same skill of, you sit down and you interview someone and you work out how to tell their story in a way that is enjoyable and clear and interesting for the reader. So it's a really good training ground from that perspective. And I still do lots of freelance journalism. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's actually quite a nice thing just to tell someone else's story and not be
Yes.
in your own
Yeah,
head trying to make things up. It's
absolutely.
quite a nice balance.
So talk me now to the point where you started, where you decided, or how did it happen that you were starting to write a book of your own, a story of your own for publication? How did that happen?
So I'd always kind of thought I would do it. I always sort of said someday. And I had this idea that I wanted to go and stay with my aunties in Italy and get them to teach me all the food that I remembered from my childhood and then weave a novel around their recipes. But by then I was living in New Zealand. So, and we'd just bought a house and I had a full-time job and there was just no way I could go. I just got married. There was no way I could go back and spend 6 months in Italy. So I kept saying to myself, someday that's what I'm going to do. And then I was at work one day, I worked on a woman's magazine, and I got an email from a friend to tell me that a well-known broadcaster in New Zealand, who was someone I'd interviewed a lot, had just been diagnosed with a brain tumor and it didn't look good. And she was 56. Angela Daughtry would have been 56, which I was only in my mid 30s. At the time, 56 seemed like a great age. Now it seems impossibly young. But I had just had one of those seize the day moments because I
Yeah.
thought to myself, I bet Angela didn't, wake up in the morning thinking I'm running out of time. But actually, none of us really know how long we've got, what's going to happen. And if you really want to do something, you've got to do it. And I
Use the
really
day.
want
Carpe diem.
I really wanted to write a book. And so I thought to myself, okay, I'm just going to write it. I'll do it on the evenings and the weekends, a little bit at a time. I won't worry about it being good because probably no one's going to read it, but I'm just going to write this book. And then I can sort of tick it off and say, well, I did
Well, I
that.
did it anyway.
I did
Could
it,
you have ever imagined then somebody saying, well, as it happens, by the time you get to such an age, you will have written 15 and you'll have been translated into half. Could you ever imagined that success? No.
I didn't. I wouldn't have thought I had
Imposter
15.
syndrome yet again.
I mean, I think that's the interesting thing. I still have imposter syndrome even after all the books. And I never embark on a new book thinking, well, this will be easy. I can do it. I'm always like, oh, like I've just the 16th one comes out in September, so that
Ever?
one's just
Yes.
been
Yeah.
finished.
I want to
And
talk about that one. Yeah, definitely. So,
always
I mean,
fun.
one something that your father said, um, I came across some what your dad said in my research, and something that he wanted to give to his family, being Italian, his passion for food, that you live to eat instead of eating to live. And I feel that really does come out in the books.
Yeah, I think Italians, well, you live in Italy, so you know this.
Yeah, yeah, they were always eating
They
en
really,
masse.
yeah, en masse. They care about food. And
Yeah,
I've got my zia Pepina, you could turn up at her house with 20 people and say
yeah,
we're a little bit hungry,
I
and she would
know. I
produce
know.
amazing food. So
Yeah.
I wanted to write about that because I think that generosity, and some of these people have got very little, but they will still
It's like
create.
the breaking of bread, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
I mean, whatever you do, whatever somebody does for you or you do for them, it has to be reciprocated by eating with them. Really, it's quite bizarre if you've just come from an English background, I think. But you
But
have to
also,
eat with them, don't you?
yeah. And everybody's got their own recipe. So they'll
Yes,
argue, they'll be like,
yes,
then what are you talking about? That's not how you make a lasagna. Ugh," and they'll all have, they're really passionately engaged in it. So
absolutely.
all of that, and certainly my memories of my aunts cooking for me when I went to Italy, the food that they made, which wasn't like Italian restaurant food.
No,
Italian home cooking is quite
no,
different.
no. Would you? Would you say, or are you happy with the title that Nikki writes novels that takes readers to Italy? She writes about family, love, friendship, and food. You completely happy with that title, with that label?
Well, I mean, I might turn around and decide to murder somebody one day.
Oh,
Anything. And in fact, there have been some more gritty themes in my
okay,
books. There have
okay,
been, definitely. I wrote a book called P.S. Come to Italy where dementia was a theme in it and loss. So there have been grittier themes, but I guess I want, particularly with the world in the shape it's in, I do want people to be uplifted
yeah,
and to have a bit of an escape because I think
absolutely.
we're so connected now, and we all just need a bit of a break from a lot of stuff that's going on that we are powerless to do anything about. We deserve a bit of a break from that,
Yeah,
and I
and a
think
bit of
books
sunshine, I think, really.
are a bit of sunshine and
Would
deliciousness.
you also say, have you seen a maturity come through in your stories from the first ones to the latest ones? Have you seen much of a difference? Or do you fit some authors sort of, because of their publishers, this is the brand, this is the brand, we'll just churn it out. But I think some authors sometimes want to break a little bit free from that. And there is a sense of maturity in their writing, isn't there? Do you feel that way with yours?
I think often what I write about is a lot to do with what's going on in my head at the time.
Okay.
So certainly more recent books, because I'm in my early 60s now, more recent books have been a lot more about how I feel about getting older. Not necessarily that the characters are always old. In my new book, A Sienna Love Story, she's 40, but that's a real moment where you kind of, it's a moment of, gosh, 40, that's a milestone. I'm getting
Yeah.
older. So I think
Yeah.
that definitely my feelings about aging and who I want to be when I'm older and how I want to keep having
Well,
adventures, all that
that
stuff comes out.
that brings me very, very nicely to a few quotes that nope, nope. First of all, where is it? Where is it? This is a quote from the book at the moment, obviously. And I've highlighted this because I thought this is such a reflective paragraph. Who do I want my future me to be? Not my father reading the Daily Telegraph and endlessly complaining that the world is going to hell in a handcart. And much as I love her, not my mother, who mostly nods along. Who will I be when the kids leave home and I get the whole of my life back? That's a really beautiful paragraph, don't you think?
Yeah, and I
About
think a lot
how
of women think like that.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Anna is slightly younger anyway, isn't she, in this story? But I think that's really, really reflective. Um, and Anna obviously is a journalist in the story as well. And another one I had, all those years in journalism had taught her the value of finding out things for herself. She would pick one of those towns and drive there. Walking back to the hotel, she was reminded herself who she was a woman that left failures behind, who was unafraid, resilient, or at least a woman who knew how to act that way. Is she you?
No, she is not me. She is a little bit based on an English food writer who did a very similar thing, just packed all her stuff in a car and
Oh,
moved to Puglia. A little bit based on a writer called Ruth Reichel, who edited a food magazine in America that got closed down very quickly. And she wrote a book about it called Save Me the Plums. So I sort of read her book. So I did lots of, people always think you're writing autobiographically, but actually I did quite a lot of research for this book.
yeah.
And in fact, the other character in the book, Sky, she's
Sky, yes, Sky. I
having
think
a
I
little
said
bit.
Anna. Did I say Anne? I think,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah, I meant
Anna is
Sky. The cook. Yeah,
Sky
yeah,
is
cake
having a
lady.
moment of, her husband. She's kind of not sure that she wants to still be married to her husband. And there's a line that she says, which is, sometimes love goes missing. Somehow it was there all along. And I think
Yeah,
that's probably more me because I've been with
yes.
my husband for 30 years. Not all
Yeah.
of those 30 years have been happy.
No,
I
no,
have
that's
been
marriage,
moments, yeah,
life.
there've been moments where I've been like, gosh, I'd quite like to clear out your side of the water.
I mean, I'm almost at the end of the book. I'm absolutely loving it. And because I live in Italy, I do look for a sense of authenticity, which you have in buckets because you've had, most of your life you've been connected with Italy, and they are so lovely. Anna stood at the window, gazing out over acres of red earth and rows of silvery green olive trees, much like the view I have of my olive trees out of my window. This
Lovely.
this felt like the Italy she had come to find. I think that's absolutely beautiful. It really is. And you've got some lovely moments. And for anyone that is connected with Italy or has seen the real Italy, when you go into little towns, the washing is always flapping about on the balconies. And you absolutely nail this. You really do. She walked into a maze of narrow lanes, yes, winding between houses with drying laundry fluttering from balconies. Yes, see that every day. The sounds and smells of people's lives drifting through their unshuttered windows. That is exactly how it is. Especially at lunchtime when you don't see anyone in the town and you just walk through and you can smell the lunches and you can hear the chatter and the television. It's so
Yeah.
like that. Those are beautiful, beautiful descriptive moments.
And sometimes I'll hear authors say, oh, I just do all my research online. I don't need to go to a place. But I think you absolutely need to go for
Absolutely
that, yeah,
do.
for those smells and the sounds and the stuff that really takes readers there and makes them feel,
Yeah.
that it's a real place.
Of the books that you have, um, which would you say you are most proud of?
Everybody wants to know that and what and I don't really have a favorite. It's probably usually the one that you either just finished or you're working on. But that's
Okay.
complicated by the fact that I think any author goes through phases of thinking the book they're working on is a work of genius and phases of thinking it's absolutely terrible. You just you never feel 100% sure about it. So when I did the last read through of A Sienna Love Story, I kind of thought, oh, this might be the best book I've written.
Right.
But I'm not 100% confident of
No.
that. I'm like, this might be the best book I've ever written, or it might not be. And at the end of the day, I'm the last person who's going to be able to tell that. I've put so
Yeah.
much work into it. I've just got to
Yeah.
send it
Yeah.
out into the world and hope that other people love it and,
Which
enjoy.
brings me to book reviews very neatly. Do you read them? What do you think of them? have you developed that outer case of armor so that a bad review doesn't touch you? Tell me.
I actually write book reviews. One of my jobs is I write book reviews for a weekly magazine. So, and I try always to write constructive reviews. Not that I'm never critical, but I could not completely. If I really don't like something, I stop reading it and put it down and find something else because I don't want to eviscerate someone's. I know
No,
how much
no,
work.
exactly.
Other people's reviews. It's a really funny thing because you can read a million reviews and like 98% of them can be really good. And you will remember the 2% of bad ones. That you will remember the one where someone said the ending was predictable. And that one always makes me laugh because I'm like, what do you mean? I didn't know how it was going to end. If only you'd been around, you could have told me.
Yeah,
So yeah, it is tricky. And it's an interesting thing with books that everybody thinks that they've sort of got, the right to review them. Which isn't the case with other things. It is the same with restaurants, I guess,
I
and
know.
movies.
I think I don't know whether it's a good thing that we're in that culture at the moment where everybody has to review everything. I mean, I just don't, if I stay in a really fabulous hotel, yes, I'll say this is really nice. For
Yeah.
so other people can go, but I think if it were a naff hotel, I just don't think I just, maybe they just had a bad day. I just wouldn't want
Mm.
to. But yeah,
Yeah.
Amazon and Goodreads. I used to put all my reviews on those too. Now I just think, do you know what? If people want to read my reviews, they can go to Substack and they can go to my website where I will write my best review. My best review. I'll quote from it. I'll find examples of things to back up
Yeah.
everything that I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I think it's working a little bit because I'm getting a lot of books to read now, which is good. But what I wanted to say, actually, another question for you is coming on from reviews, moving on, what would you hope that readers take away from your books?
Oh, well, I hope that they take them to Italy, because lots of people can't travel. They can't afford to travel. Their health's not good. It's just too far, especially this side of the world. It's a long way to get to Italy. So mostly I want to take them there. I want them when they're reading the book to almost forget that they're reading. I don't want them to think, gosh, that was a wonderful metaphor, or, what a clever simile. I want them just to feel like they're there
Right.
with the characters in whatever town it's set in. Often there's small towns in southern Italy, but there's been some set in Venice. So I
Yeah.
just absolutely want the reader to go there. And I want them at the end to feel some hope about life and a little bit uplifted and I guess to relate to the characters. I
Yeah.
don't want them. I just read a book and it was everybody in the whole book was so nice. And I felt like it was so unrealistic. So I want my
Because not
books to
everybody is.
yeah. And I'm not 100% nice. We've all got spiky sides to our characters. I can be quite unlovely every now and then if I feel like it. So
Oh, I don't
I,
believe that for 1 minute.
I want that authenticity, I guess, from the books. And they're
I
the
I
books I enjoy.
I mean, you really focus on these two characters, don't you, in Marry Me in Italy? And I really like Sky, and she's obviously so creative. And she's got this husband. I don't know, would you put a label on the husband's personality? I don't know how you would describe
Well,
that.
I think he's definitely neurodiverse. Yeah.
Okay. And I also like the character of Anna. And I think there must be so many people, women, who devote their lives to a job, then, to the extent that her social life was sacrificed, getting married, having kids, all of that was sacrificed for her career. And then she goes in one day and the job's gone. The job has gone, and that's it. And obviously that then gives you the, well, now we can get her to Italy and give her a different kind of a path. And that's the story. But you're with her. You're really, really with her, aren't you? Because you just can't imagine what she would have gone through, really.
And I wanted to write two very different women who don't
Yeah,
want the
they are. They really are.
because I think we've almost got to the stage in life where we all feel like we only can get on with people if we're the same as they are and we
Yeah,
think the same things and have the
yeah,
same beliefs. So they're very different. You know, Anna's very controlled and closed
yeah,
down,
yeah.
and Sky's very sort of open and creative. And when they do finally meet, theirs isn't a natural friendship at all, but they do, when their paths cross, kind of interesting things happen. So yeah, I wanted to do that with them. I felt like they were, I always feel like my characters are real people and that
Yes.
I,
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
them. And
Do
I guess there's
you?
a little bit,
Sorry, go on.
I think there's always a little bit of me in all of them, just like
Yeah.
a soup song of me.
Do you feel your publisher, which is it Hatchet, your publishers are branding you a little bit? I mean, looking at the later covers, they're gorgeous covers, and there's always Italy in the title.
Yeah.
Is that you? Is that by design, or is that the publishers? Because if you go into a bookshop, you would know your books. You wouldn't, they just stand out really, don't they? The font, the colors, they're gorgeous.
Well, I think what I didn't understand about publishing when I started out was if you write a book that has any level of success, your publishers want you to keep writing that kind of book, and then they obviously market it in a certain way. I do think that my next book is a little bit different.
Right,
I haven't had the cover for it yet. Hoping to
right.
get it quite soon, but I think the cover will be different again because it's quite a it's got more action in it, the story. It's got a more feminist theme. So it's still got, you know, Italy and food and friendship and love, but I think it's quite different. So yeah.
Why Sienna? What was it about Sienna? And tell me about the research you did for the book. And this book is called A Sienna Love Story.
Yeah. So I was interested in the Palio, which is the horse race,
Yes.
bareback horse race that is run in the Piazza del Campo, the central piazza of Siena, twice a year in the summer. And I think I must have read somewhere that in its entire history, only two women have ever ridden in it. Once was in the 1600s before it was the race it is today. And the other was this woman called Rosanna Bonelli, who's now in her early 90s. She's still around. She rode in 1957. But there hasn't been a woman since then. And I thought, well, why?
Why?
And, and what if? And often that's how a book starts. You think, but what if? What if a woman did
Yeah,
want to ride?
yeah.
What would happen? So it is the story of a woman who wants to ride in the Palio, and it's the story of her ex-husband, who is a jockey in the Palio they call Fantini. He's a Fantino. And her friend and a documentary maker who's come to Siena to make a documentary about the Palio. And he wants to expose, I guess, the less, there's a lot of glamour around the Palio, but it's also quite a brutal horse race and animals do get hurt. So he wants to expose that. So there's a lot going on in this book. And there's also some love and, yeah, romance.
It's a
And
book about impossible dreams, I understand.
it's a book about being underestimated. I think people quite often underestimate women. I'm often being told by my own husband, like just last week, I went and played croquet and he said, you'll be rubbish at that. I was like, actually, I wasn't great. But don't underestimate me. I don't like to be told what I can't do.
No,
And I think
no.
it's a book about people telling a woman what she can't do and her deciding to try and do it and what happens after that. And it is an impossible dream. And when I was in Siena, so I went there in May last year and managed to meet Rosanna Bonelli, who
Right.
is extraordinary. You can just tell, even though she's obviously very elderly now, she's a gun, you know. You can tell, you can see that she's still got a lot of attitude. I interviewed her in Italian. My Italian's not great, so that was a challenge. but I think I understood enough to really get her spirit.
Oh,
So that was
lovely.
fantastic, actually. She was such a character, or she is such a character. And she gave me this book that she'd written about her life, which was cool, and signed it for me. And yeah, so that was great. And I spent a lot of time, Siena is such an interesting city because the Palio is not.
I don't really know Sienna very well.
Well, they run this race twice a year, but it's not
Yeah,
a tourist thing at all. It's
no.
absolutely something they all live for. And the city is divided into these separate regions. I think there's 17 called contrade. And you're
Okay.
born into your contrada and you spend your life socializing with the other people in your contrada. And then your contrada runs a horse in the Palio every year.
Oh,
And you
wow.
care so much about this horse race. And the more I researched it, the more astonishing the whole system of
Are you a
Siena.
horsewoman?
I am, I do ride. I do not race bareback around a central square.
Around the
I
town.
do that. I ride the town though. I've always been I've ridden since I was a little girl and I have a horse now. In New Zealand, it's probably a little bit easier to have a horse than it is in Europe, because there's lots of land, so they can graze outdoors. So yeah, it's been a really important part of my life, and I
Wow.
want to
This
write a
sounds
book.
a lovely story, doesn't it? Something that's very close to your heart. Um, Going back to when was the first one? Was it Delicious in 2005 and then Summer at Villa Rosa 2007, The Italian Wedding 2009. I mean, I don't know how you find time to do anything else when you're releasing a book almost every year or 2 years. You've changed publishers a couple of times. Going back to the first one, is it the same name?
Yeah, it's Orion, and they're part of the
Oh,
Hachette Group.
right, right. How did you find that publisher? How did you get your publisher? Tell us.
So I'd written the book, and actually, it was published in New Zealand by Random House, but that
Right.
was just New Zealand, and I really wanted to get a UK publishing deal. So I sent off the first 10,000 words and a cover letter to a bunch of different agents, and one of them came back and said, I'd like to represent you, but she read the whole book and said, I'd like to represent you, but this book is going to need a lot more work. So she helped me originally and
Right.
I rewrote it. And then she got the publishing deal for me. Her name was Maggie Noack. She got the publishing deal with Orion for me. And I had this amazing editor called Yvette Goulden. And she said, I love your book, but it still needs a lot of work. So I rewrote that book so many times.
Times.
And in fact, when
I
Yvette
think that
sent me,
goes with the territory, doesn't it?
she sent me, I don't know, thousands and thousands of words of helpful notes. And I actually rang her and said, I'm really sorry I can't do this. And she was so lovely to me and so encouraging. And when I look back, she taught me to write. She really taught me a lot of stuff because you do all sorts of silly things when you start out. You'll have a character doing something that's utterly out of character that they would never do in a million years, but you want them to do it because it makes the plot go in a certain direction. So all those sorts of things that I was messing up, she sort of sorted out. So I didn't, lots of writers will have written millions of books and they've been rejected. I kind of didn't have that experience. My first book did get accepted, but it was a very different book by the time
Mm.
it got published.
Yeah.
First
Your
draft.
family, your husband must be extremely proud of your success. I mean, do you still keep pinching yourself even now? Really?
My
Right.
husband,
I'm a published author.
my husband is not a reader. His favorite book is The Highway Code, which he
Okay.
which he quotes from a lot while I'm driving. And he's not a reader at all. So he's slightly bemused.
Yeah.
Certainly, my parents are proud. They read all my books
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
But my husband, he's a real Kiwi bloke. So I can remember I was having a real problem with the book and I said, I just can't do it. I can't do this. And he just went, well, don't then. I went, oh, but I want to. So he's just very pragmatic that Kiwi men are, there's not a lot of romance.
No. And literary success, what does that mean to you? Is it the fame? Is it the money? Is it just the books behind you that you've written in your, office library. What is literary success to you?
Well, I don't know that I'm that successful. I'm not really. There's always people that are a lot more successful than you. I don't make an enormous amount of money. I think there's a very small percentage of writers who, make all the money, the 1%, as there is in the rest of the world. So it's not really about that. I think at the end of the day, it's the readers, and quite often I'll be feeling discouraged, and then I'll get an email from somebody
Yeah.
saying, I was going through a really bad time. A friend gave me your book and I read it, and it just took me away from my horrible boss or the illness I've got or whatever is going on in their lives. And then I got, three more of them, and thank you so much for writing them. And I feel like
But
that success
that
to me.
validates it all, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
when I was sort of, putting posts on different writing groups and, I'm reading this book by Nicky Pellegrino and I'm going to be, speaking to her. And a few people said, "Oh, I really like her books," So but trust me, you have a very loyal fan club. They're out there somewhere, in these book clubs and book groups. And oh, I really like hers. I've read all of hers. And that's, you don't always know, do you? Because not everyone does a review, but they're out there. Your loyal fans, your followers, trust me, they're out there. They
Which
really
is
are.
really lovely. It is really lovely when you and so I get to do events in New Zealand, and then you meet people that have loved the books, and that's just really nice. That is a reminder, because so much of writing a book is just you in a
Yeah,
room by yourself.
absolutely. Your website is absolutely beautiful.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
so nice. It's one of the nicest I've seen. And also you have, which is nickipellegrino.com. Um, you also, I don't know whether you've got any planned, but you have been doing these tours, these food tours. I mean, are you doing any more of those? They look amazing.
Yeah, so they came about because I did a book called The Food of Love Cooking
Yeah,
School. It was set in
yeah.
Sicily, and I went to a cooking school to research it. And then back about 10 years later, I'd stayed in touch with this woman, Katia Amore, who ran it. And she emailed me and said, I'm still getting people, because I mentioned it in the acknowledgements to the book. She said, I'm still getting people who've read your book who come to the cooking
Oh,
school for lessons.
wow. Wow.
And so she told me all these stories, and I got terrible FOMO. And I think in Auckland it was raining and cold and miserable. And I was like, oh, my readers are having fun in Italy without me, and I should be with them. So I have a friend who does lots of small group tours, and I talked to her and said, do you think I could do them in Sicily? And she was very encouraging, and she put me in touch with a tour company called Southern Visions, who are based in Puglia. And so I sort of sent them a copy of the book and said, do you think you could organize a tour that would kind of bring this book to life? And so they did. I've done two to Sicily so far.
Mhm.
We go back to the original cooking school, which is called Love Sicily,
Oh,
and we have
wonderful.
lots of experiences that
Oh,
are like the characters in the book. And
oh,
then this year, all going well, because travel's obviously all a bit crazy at the
yeah,
moment, but we're
yeah.
set to go to Sicily, and I'm going to do one in Puglia this time as well, because I've set
Okay.
a couple of books in Puglia. So yeah, and it's just kind of it's fun. It's a nice sort of side hustle. I get enough money to pay for my fare to
Mm.
go back and
You're a
do a bit of.
long way from Italy now, aren't you, in New Zealand?
So it is expensive to get back there, and it's 24 to 33 hours
Yeah,
away.
yeah,
So it's a bit of a mission. So when you go, you want to go for a reasonable amount of
yeah,
time.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know how long I'll do them for. I'm sort of planning it on. I'll hopefully do some in 2027,
Oh,
because
they
it's
look
just fun.
wonderful. They really did. I mean, food and Italy, I mean, they just go hand in hand, really, don't they? Yeah,
And
I just thought, how lovely, an author. I mean, yeah, it ties in with the book so nicely, doesn't it, really?
And the interesting thing is, because to begin with, I was like, well, how am I going to get on with a group of 12 people that I've never met before? And, how will it be going on holiday with 12 strangers? But if you get a group of people who love Italy and love books and love food, even
Yeah,
though they might be different in other ways, there's enough connections. So one of the loveliest things is just seeing the friendships that develop. People
yeah,
from the last two
absolutely.
tours are still catching up without me. which seems rude, um, and having a nice time. So it has been like I
Yeah.
didn't really know if it would work, but I've loved every
Yeah.
minute.
Oh, how wonderful. And how often do you get back to Liverpool?
Well, then once I've done the Italy thing, I go back because my
Oh,
mum's
right.
just about
Right.
to turn 90 and my dad's 88. So I'm very aware that I have to try and get back there. You know, and
Yeah.
obviously during the pandemic, New Zealand's borders
I
closed. Like
know. I
I
know.
couldn't get out.
No.
So now I'm trying to get back every year and spend some time hanging out with them while they're still with us.
How lovely. Um, Another question. Of the books that you've written, which character in the books would you relate to the most and why?
Oh gosh.
Which one is you? Or are there bits of you in all of these?
Little bits of me and little bits of other people I meet in
Yeah.
all of them. And sometimes it will just be something somebody will say. I know the character of Sky in Marry Me in Italy, the way she is with her kids is the way a friend of mine is with her children. And I just observed, I spent a lot of time with her during that period where she was wanting to keep them safe, but also wanting to let them go, which I think is a hard, when your kids become independent, it's a hard thing. And so I sort of observed that. So there's little bits. My very favorite character, though, and it's not me at all, is a character called Coco who appears in the two Venice books, A Year at Hotel
Okay.
Gondola and One Summer in Venice. And she's this sort of she is this very colorful, flamboyant, beautifully dressed diva, basically. And she's a little bit based on a friend of mine, very based on a friend of mine who has not recognized herself. Um,
That's a good thing, right?
and I just like it because she's a big character. So I didn't mean to put her in two books. I put her in the first Venice book and she just kind of gate crashed the second one.
Right.
Yeah. So I like that. I love doing that thing where you bring characters back and you don't necessarily have to have read the first book that they appear
No, to do. And tell
in.
me about your writing process because it seems to be so different. I mean, some people are up at the crack of dawn, and they've done so many thousand words before 11. What is how do you do it when you've got a book in mind? Are you very, very, what's the word? Not dedicated, very, there's a word for it and I
Conscientious.
can't think. Yeah, yeah, it rigid and I've got to do 10,000 words before lunchtime.
No, because I'm
No.
always juggling other things. So
Okay.
often the magazine deadlines often are more urgent.
Okay. Yeah.
But I always do have a deadline. I think if I didn't have a deadline, nothing would happen. But I
Right.
always know.
Discipline, that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I just write when I've got time. I
Okay.
mean, when I was going through perimenopause, I didn't sleep very much, and I would be up at sort of 3, 4 a.m. wide awake, and I did a lot of writing then. And afterwards, when I reread the book, I thought, gosh, the insomnia chapters are going to be interesting, but they were actually fine, which proves how awake women are in
Wow.
perimenopause. You're just like,
Wow.
Jean, I get sleep.
Right.
So, and that was actually quite a good time to write because no one's sending you emails, no one's
No.
ringing, no one's saying, come and have a
No.
coffee.
No.
So, yeah, it
One
was,
author, one American author, I interviewed, and she said because she's had fairly young children, she would literally get up at 4 every morning and write up until 9 and then get breakfast ready for the family. And I thought, gosh, that really is very disciplined, isn't it, really, to be so, focused like that because
yeah.
you do have a life outside of being an author, and it's got to gel and merge together, really, I guess.
I interviewed an author called Elizabeth Kostofer. She was an American woman. She wrote a book called The Historian. And she said to me, I picked my novel up and put it down like knitting. So if I could just
Okay,
I pick it up and just knit a few rows and then put it down
right.
again. And I thought that was quite interesting because I'd always
Yeah.
imagined the whole day. But actually you don't always get a whole day. You might just get 2 hours before it gets light and you've got other things to do or your kids wake up or yeah. So I think it's just that thing of making it a priority. But you have to want to do it.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think everyone has the Barbara Cartland approach, do they?
No.
In that, that they have to write 7 books in a week. I think that that seems incredibly intense. But if you've got deadlines, if you've got your publisher and your editors saying, right, Nikki, come on, we need this book now. I mean, how are you contracted to do? We know the next one, which is going to be out in the summer, but after that, how's that work?
After that, I meant to have written another one by the end of December, but I haven't
Oh.
started it yet.
Right,
Which
I
is
won't say
a
anything.
bit of a disaster because I've got the idea and I know what it's going to be about.
Okay.
But I'm working on another project at the moment, top secret nonfiction project. So I need to finish that and get some other things done. And I feel like next month, I keep saying to myself, next month I'll start that
Next
book.
month. Because
Yeah.
where are you now? We're going into spring. So are you going into
We're
winter?
going into autumn. Our
Oh,
autumn's
autumn.
always quite lovely, beautiful sunny days. And I am heading back hopefully to Italy in May. So
Right.
I'll do the tours and do a bit
Yeah.
more research. And hopefully,
Wonderful.
I often find
Wonderful.
being in Italy is a great place to write. So my father's got this lovely cousin called Clara, who has a place in Basilicata on the coast
Okay.
and her
Okay.
summer holiday house. And we've spent a lot of time there. She's very, very generously let us stay there. And so I wrote quite a bit of Marry Me in Italy there because we had a few weeks there and
Mhm.
there's not a lot to do there. You just go for a swim, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
cook some
lovely.
food
How
and then
beautiful.
do some
Could you ever
writing.
see yourself living in Italy?
Oh, I'd love to.
Would
I'd
you?
love to. I've got a dog and a horse, and I can't live. In fact,
Yeah.
my greyhound's just appearing in my office. You can't see him. But yeah, so that's the problem. And I don't have an Italian passport. I could probably get one, but
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
administration has defeated
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah.
I would love to spend 6 months to a year just living somewhere like you do,
Oh, it's
a small place, not a big city.
it's beautiful. I'd never heard of Abruzzo before doing some research on where to go and realizing that we wouldn't be able to afford Tuscany or Umbria or anywhere like that. And then we came across this. I mean, they call it the wild heart of Italy, where the mountains meet the sea. And I think
Yeah.
that's the most accurate description that there is because I've got the mountains outside my window and we're very close to the sea. I mean, it's just ticks all bases, really. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time this evening. It's been an absolute blast. It really has. I'm hearing more of a Kiwi accent in your voice than,
Wow.
are you all right there, La? Of Liverpool one.
I
But
have been here for a long time. I've been here for like 30 years now. But when I go back to Liverpool, because my parents still live in the house that I live, I do get a bit more like that when I'm there.
I know. I think I was picking it up. I mean, people still say to me, "I can tell that you're from up north," and I think, "Oh, okay." I thought I had a nice posh Surrey accent. Clearly not. So it's still there, but Liverpool was an amazing place to study. Wishing you all the luck with the new one in the summer. Books can be purchased from Amazon. You've got all your blurb. You've got the most gorgeous website for everybody to
Oh,
look
thank
at.
you.
It really is quite beautiful. Um, yeah, I mean, let's touch base again in the summer when that one comes out, and that would be absolutely wonderful, wouldn't it?
Definitely. I'll try and
Have you
make
got
sure
a
that
date yet? Have you got a date?
oh, it's like September the 7th or
Oh,
something.
okay. Okay.
September something or other. It's all a blur. It might be the 14th.
Right.
Definitely September. But yeah, so I'm just waiting on the cover, but the book's all
Yeah.
done
Yeah.
and
Lovely.
yeah,
Oh, well, look out for it, definitely. Well,
excellent.
thanks for your time again. It's been so nice to talk to you. It really has. And you've got an incredible fan base out there. You really have.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's always lovely to talk about books with someone.
It certainly is. Right. You can get off to bed now, can't you?
Good night.
Ciao, ciao, Nikki.